So, hello and welcome to this American Promise Training and Action Series. This is the first meeting of the Letters to the Editor team, and we're excited you've joined us. We've got an extraordinary group of American Promise volunteers who are leading our different teams, and I'm delighted to introduce Ann Drum, organizer of the American Promise North Texas chapter, who has agreed to lead the Letters to the Editor team. Ann, welcome, and please go ahead.
All right, thank you, Marnie, and welcome everyone. The purpose of the Letters to the Editor team is threefold. One, to inspire you about the importance of spreading our message through letters to the editor and other media to win the 28th Amendment, and to help you be a more confident and enthusiastic letter writer and media activist for our work. And three, to provide a structure of ongoing support to assist you in succeeding. So as you notice, this is the Letters to the Editor team, but tonight we're actually going to work on an op-ed. We had always planned on including other forms of media like op-eds and articles in this training eventually, but Lobby Day month next month offers us a great opportunity. So tonight we're going to take advantage of that opportunity and focus on getting an article in the local newspaper by submitting a news release on your Lobby Day experience. So more on that in a moment. Tonight's session is one in a series of 5 trainings and ongoing teams that meet monthly on topics like friend banking, meeting with elected officials, organizing events, and social media. The heart of tonight's training will be generating an article in your local paper about your Lobby Day experience. With that in mind, we have an exciting goal of 100 meetings with members of Congress or their staff during our Lobby Days, May 4th, 5th, and 6th. If you don't have a Lobby Day meeting scheduled yet, there's still time to schedule them. Because the National Citizen Leadership Conference, or NCLC, is May 2nd through 6th, and because Lobby Days, May 4th, 5th, and 6th are such an important part of NCLC, we have begun a series of trainings to help you prepare for Lobby Days. The final Lobby Day training is Wednesday, April 28th from 7:30 to 9 o'clock Eastern Time. It's a 90-minute training. And we've put the registration link for that training in the chat, so please register if you haven't already. So let me tell you what's going to happen tonight. We're going to start with some inspiration. Then I'll ask you to respond to this question. Why would you want to have an article in your local paper about your Lobby Day experience? And then we'll read through some instructions for submitting a news article to your local paper. And then we'll read through a fill in the blanks template for a news release. And then I'm going to read a draft news release that I have completed for my local newspaper. Then we're going to have a little role play between me and Marnie, and then we'll see if there are any more questions before we end the call. So we're going to take your questions throughout. When you do have a questions or comment, please raise your hand, raise your real hand or your electronic hand. We'll call on you and ask you to unmute yourself. Tell us your name and what city you're in, and then if you don't mind, mute yourself again after you're finished. It just helps cut down on the background noise. So for our inspiration, we're going to start with a short video of Marshall Saunders, who's the founder of Citizens Climate Lobby, discussing the first media piece he ever had published in about 1997, or about 10 years before he founded CCL. See if any of his nervousness rings true for you. Marnie, would you like to start that video?
Again, back in 1995, I think this was my first effort at getting something published in the San Diego Union Tribune. For years, the San Diego Union Tribune had not published anything on results as issue. We might have gotten one letter to the editor 3 years before. It was just like that. And so the partners wanted to get angry placards and walk back and forth in front of headquarters. And I said, no, let's not do that. Let me see what I can do for a little while. And so I looked at the editorial page, which I had never done before. And I saw at the top was a guy by the name of Bob Kittle, the top editorial editor for that section of the paper. And I called him. And he didn't answer the phone. I left him a nice message, and 2 days later, he still hadn't called me back. What's this? You know, it's like, and so I sent him an email, and we had an editorial packet. It was still done by the same guy, Steve, and he didn't call me back. No email back. And a few months later, there was another issue, and I called him again, Mr. Kittle, Marshall Saunders, blah, blah, blah. And 2 days later, still no call back. Well, I'm embarrassed to say that this went on for about 1.5 years. And, you know, maybe it was even 2 years. But there was this thing I thought about later. It's like, I was doing my job. He wasn't doing his job as I saw it. And I didn't have to talk to anybody. And so the group leader, again, God bless group leader, said, why don't you try calling somebody else? And being a well-trained volunteer, I thought, that's a good idea. I'll call somebody else. So I looked at the editorial section in the San Diego Union Tribune, and the top guy was not Mr. Kittle, but rather it was a guy named Robert Caldwell. I called him up, and he answered the phone. It's the first guy I've ever spoken to at the San Diego Union Tribune. And I started talking. And I got just a little bit into my laser talk, and he said, I was expecting an important call. And you're not it. Well, I swallowed, and I just kept talking. First guy I ever spoke to down there. So in a minute, he said, stop reading to me. I said, Mr. Caldwell, I'm not reading to you. I'm just talking. And he kept me on the phone for an hour, almost an hour, just short of an hour. And this is the piece that he published in the Sunday section. This is the piece he published.
I just love that line. I was expecting an important call, and you're not it. So let me hear from somebody. What inspired you about Marshall's story? What insight did you have? Let's hear from somebody, and then we'll go on. Anybody want to volunteer? All right, Tricia, you want to unmute yourself?
I think his diligence at keeping after it, and also the fact that he really didn't know any better, so he was just going to keep going until he got somebody to get his point.
That's right. Just persistence. Just kept trying, wasn't dissuaded. So let's go on. I want to ask this question. Why would you want to have an article in your local paper about your lobby day experience? Let's hear from a few people. And if you can just jump in if I don't see you to call on you.
I think it makes good advertising for the group.
That's right. Help get the word out in the community about what we're doing. Absolutely. What else? So, members of Congress read the newspaper, or at least their staff do.
We like to think so.
So, one of the things we can do when we're looking for media exposure, whether it's in an LTE or an op-ed or a news profile, is call out our members of Congress by name, in a respectful and encouraging way. That will help get their attention and help educate them about what we are doing. Any other thoughts about why we might want to try to get any letters placed in the paper? Yes, Tricia.
It may interest other people in joining the group if we put a way to join.
Absolutely. Grow your chapter. And you're right. Tell them how to get in touch with you. So, if they're interested, what website do they go to? What email address do they use to contact you? Absolutely. It also just helps us become better communicators. Every time we are practicing, for example, to talk to that editor or that reporter, we're practicing our core talking points, our core communication skills. And so it helps us become better advocates for this cause. Great, well, thank you for that. So we're going to read through some instructions for submitting a news article to your local newspaper. And we've placed the instructions page and our fill in the blank news release template in the chat. So I'm going to take some volunteers. So we like to read together out loud when we have these trainings. So I'd love for someone to volunteer to read the first 3 items in the news release instructions. Who's willing to volunteer to do a little reading out loud? All right, I'm going to call on you if you don't volunteer. Tricia, do you have the script up? Can you get started with the first 3 paragraphs, please? Starting with let's make some news.
It's not opening for me. I don't know if it's opening for
I don't
others.
think I have anything.
Okay, so Marnie, maybe we need to put the link in the chat again?
Or,
The last link I posted at 7:45 is right in the chat. So if it doesn't work, just let me know and I
It's
will.
saying you have to request access.
yeah, maybe you could share screen or something.
I can share screen. Marnie, if you'll make me the co-host, I'll share my screen. That's a good idea, Sam. Thank you. Okay, let me see. Okay, I can share my screen now. So, all right. So can y'all, Tricia, can you actually read the text? All right. If you would go ahead and get started then, please.
Let's make some news release instructions. This news release template is especially for those starting or building an American Promise chapter. The template will make it easier for you to complete a news release, pitch the article to your local paper, and help get the word out about the chapter you're starting or building. Review this draft and begin to imagine how your article will look. You can edit this electronic version easily. Remember to get a screenshot photo of the Zoom meeting with you and your member of Congress or their staff to accompany your news release and article.
Okay, so that's the beginning. Any question about that before we move on to the next few paragraphs? Okay, all right. Will somebody else please volunteer to read the next 3 paragraphs?
And I will. It's Marie.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Marie.
Where am I starting? I got it open now. So as soon as possible.
As soon as possible, yeah.
Okay. It's got to open. All right. As soon as possible, while the memories are still fresh, edit the news release template to include your name or names, your thoughts and feelings about the conference, the lobby day meetings, the need for a 28th Amendment, and the chapter you will start or are building. Soon after your virtual lobby day meetings, Submit the completed news release with the photo, probably not to a major city paper, but a smaller local weekly newspaper. You can go online or call the newspaper to find out how to submit it. That is via email or snail mail. If they publish it, they might publish the piece as is, or they may assign a reporter to interview you. You may want to use a buddy system with someone from the conference or from your chapter to support each other in completing and submitting the news release.
Okay, thank you, Marie.
Mhm.
Any questions about that part that Marie just read? Okay, so I need one more volunteer to read the final 3 items, please. Okay, Michael, is that you?
Yep.
Okay,
Sorry. Am I starting with call the paper?
yes, please.
Okay. Call the paper a day or two after you sent in the news release to make sure they received it. Be prepared for both a yes and a no answer. Boy, that's right. If yes, then find out if they have any questions that you can answer and ask whether they intend to run a story. If no, then be prepared with a short pitch to get the editor's attention and interest. Find out how you can resubmit the release so that it is seen by the right person, and ask when you can follow up to find out if they intend to run a story. If that paper says no, pitch it to another small paper. If it's still not published, celebrate that you took the action and that you're in the process of learning new skills and connecting with editors. If the piece is published, celebrate, do a little dance, and then share it on social media with the American Promise staff and with your elected officials.
Great.
Where did it go?
All right, so just time for discussion about these instructions in general. Any thoughts, comments, questions about these instructions?
Is there a way for us to print it out?
Yeah, Marnie, how do you want to handle that? Do you want to send a follow-up email to everybody with an attachment?
Yeah,
Yep,
that's
so I'll be sending a recap email as soon as this recording is done and processed tomorrow. And I can make this document either a PDF or just a regular Google Doc, and I'll insert that in the follow-up email.
Okay,
The
Thank
Google
you.
link is open now, but there is a little bit of difference in the directions that what was on screen versus what's in the Google Doc. It just needs to be revised.
Yeah, what was on the screen was updated, so Marnie will use what was on the screen.
okay, great, thank you. All right, so now we're gonna read through this fill in the blanks news release. Now, does everyone have it, or do I need to share screen again?
I don't have it.
You don't have it, okay.
If
And
you,
I was just gonna say, I'm working on an iPhone, so when you screen share, it's a lot easier for me than trying to, I'll do all this
So-
on a tiny screen.
also
Okay.
as well, if you scroll down on that document, it's in there. So there is one page that says, let's make some news, what we just read. And then if you scroll down on page 2, there is the local residents lobbying, and now I'm putting in the chat the fill in the blank news release.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. It's a slightly different version, but that's okay. All right. So this is what this is our fill in the blank news release, which is a template, which is just a starting place for you to fill in more specific information about your chapter and your activities. So again, keeping with our reading out loud, can I get a volunteer to start reading from the very top, the for immediate release, through the first couple of paragraphs?
I like that. Oh, I like that.
Somebody, you know, I'm going to call
And
on you.
And I'll jump in again, it's Marie.
Okay, thanks, Marie.
For immediate release, Monday, May 10th, 2021, contact your name and title, such as American Promise chapter leader, your email address, your phone number, titled Local Residents Lobby to Get Big Money Out of Politics. Community members meet with Republicans and Democrats to build support. City, state, month, date. Local advocates from the American Promise chapter in name of your city or community joined a nationwide virtual lobbying effort seeking to remove the corrosive effects of money in politics. The lobby meetings, more than 100 nationwide, aim to build support in Congress for a constitutional amendment that would allow reasonable limits to be set on political spending. Local advocates met with Representative blank, open parentheses, or met with the office of Representative blank. Do you want me to do one more?
Sure.
Okay. Open quotes, quote from one of you about what this experience has meant to you, how you felt meeting with your member of Congress or their office, being at the online conference, a new insight or sense of commitment, or something one of the speakers or participants said that really hit home. If there is a relevant local situation regarding the influence of money in politics, feel free to mention it, close quotes, said blank, name and city.
Okay. So any questions, conversation about that portion of the template before we move on?
This is Sam. This is minor, but if my group is meeting with 2 Democratic senators and 1 Democratic rep, then I change the headline to not say Republicans and Democrats. So it depends on who you're meeting with.
Sure. Okay. We have a volunteer willing to finish reading this template, please.
I will.
Okay, thanks, Tricia.
80% of Americans believe that the US political system is out of control and that billions of dollars in campaign contributions from corporations, unions, and the wealthiest Americans result in policies that help the rich rather than fostering the common good. That is why, name of your city, residents, my name, and the name of anyone else from your area or the number participating if too many names. Joined others around the country in virtual lobby visits as part of the National Citizen Leadership Conference Lobby Days organized by American Promise. American Promise is a cross-partisan organization committing to rallying a 28th Amendment to the Constitution that would give Americans the right to place reasonable limits on campaign contributions. Change next version to political spending.
That's my own note. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. And restore human liberty to people, not corporations or the wealthy elite. American Promise members talk of the $14 billion that was spent in the 2020 election cycle, over twice what was spent in 2016, and say that to get $14 billion out of our elections, we must commit to true reform that means amending the US Constitution. In order to advance our constitutional amendment, said American Promise President Jeff Clemens, we need cooperation and understanding from both sides of the political aisle. American Promise is bringing together all Americans behind the campaign to end big money in politics. And these Citizen Lobby Day visits help the momentum for the 28th Amendment. Name of your city or community, residents, your name, and the name of anyone else from your area are committed to starting or building the American Promise chapter in our community that aims to help local residents speak up for a saner political finance system. Anyone interested in learning how they can help start or build an American Promise chapter here, name of city, can contact your name at phone or email. Or to learn more, go to www.americanpromise.net.
Okay. So that's our template that we just read through. And as you can see, you're reading my editing notes version. I'm going to clean this up a little bit, Marnie, and send it to you so that you can attach a better edited version when you send it out to everybody tomorrow. So any comments about this press release template?
I do have a question. I live in a pretty rural area. It's Brentwood, but it's in the East Bay of San Francisco. And I've been working with the California state chapter. I think it would be difficult to expect a lot of people to want to join a separate chapter and maybe not necessary if they could just join the group that's already in existence. Is there, I mean, I wouldn't mind being a contact for the group, but I think when you apply, you just send it to the national group, don't you?
I'm sorry, are you not currently affiliated with an active American Promise chapter?
Yes, in California, but I live in Brentwood. Brentwood, Antioch, and Oakley are the three communities, and
So Tricia, you work with Laura, correct? Laura Nepmeyer?
I do.
Yeah. So, and she's really functioning as a state-based chapter. So you
Yes,
might want to adjust to the language, maybe in,
right.
say, the
Okay,
California state chapter.
right. Okay, good.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Any other questions or comments about it? Okay, so I'm going to read through a little, for example, press release that I wrote based on this template. So of course, I'm making some things up because we haven't had our lobby day meetings yet. But I'm kind of assuming what I might write after we do have a lobby day meeting. So I start with the same header, the for immediate release with the date, my name, and my position, which is American Promise North Texas organizer, my email address, and my phone number. All that's in the header at the top.
Would you easily share your screen on that,
Sure.
or not so easy?
No, I can share it again. Okay, so now you can see my North Texas version. And then the title, Local Residents Lobby to Get Big Money Out of Politics. Community members meet with Republicans and Democrats to build support. Dallas, Texas, May 10, 2021. Local advocates from the American Promise chapter in North Texas joined a nationwide virtual lobbying effort seeking to remove the corrosive effects of money in politics. The lobby meetings, more than 100 nationwide, aim to build support in Congress for a constitutional amendment that would allow reasonable limits to be set on political spending. Local advocates met with the offices of several North Texas members of Congress, both Republicans and Democrats. Quote, the virtual nature of this year's conference and lobby day meant that more volunteers could participate, and 12 of our members participated in meetings in 5 offices, said local organizer Ann Drum. We asked the Democratic members to co-sponsor a version of the constitutional amendment that has been introduced by Representative Ted Deutsch, Democrat of Florida. And we asked the Republican members to give us their thoughts about proposed language for a version of the amendment that we hope to see introduced later this year with more bipartisan support. For most of our volunteers, this was their first meeting with a congressional office. They were excited about being active participants in this important advocacy, Drum said. Whatever. 80% of Americans believe that the US political system is out of control, and that the billions of dollars in campaign contributions from corporations, unions, and the wealthiest Americans result in policies that help the rich rather than fostering the common good. That is why Drum and 11 other North Texas residents joined others around the country in virtual lobby visits as part of the National Citizen Leadership Conference Lobby Days organized by American Promise. American Promise is a cross-partisan organization committed to ratifying a 28th Amendment to the Constitution that would give Americans the right to place reasonable limits on campaign contributions and restore human liberty to people, not corporations or the wealthy elite. American Promise members told Congress that $14.4 billion was spent on federal races in the 2020 election cycle, over twice what was spent in 2016. They pointed out that Democrats and Republicans are in a never-ending money arms race, which is driving political polarization and paralysis. They call for an amendment to the US Constitution so that Congress and states may once again set reasonable limits on political spending. Quote, in order to advance our constitutional amendment, said American Promise President Jeff Clements, we need cooperation and understanding from both sides of the political aisle. American Promise is bringing together all Americans behind the campaign to end big money in politics. And these Citizen Lobby Day visits help the momentum for the 28th Amendment. Members of the North Texas chapter meet on the 3rd Tuesday evening every month and are working in several ways to build a saner political system. Anyone interested in getting involved can contact Ann Drum at AmericanPromiseNTX@gmail.com. To learn more, go to AmericanPromise.net. Okay. So any questions or comments about my pretend news release that I wrote for release on the Monday after our lobby day meetings?
So Anne, my only question is, in the paragraph that starts with 80% of Americans,
Mhm.
the very end of the last sentence says, civil rights for people, not corporations or wealthy elite. And
Yeah.
wealthy elite are people.
You know, I took note of that as I was reading it out loud, and I do think we need to tweak that language.
Yeah, maybe corporations or
Yeah.
other legal entities or something.
I agree. Any other comments?
It would basically, we haven't had much success with press releases. We haven't tried an awful lot, but we haven't had much success with them. It will generally a paper, they can edit it down if they think it's too long, or they can decide to call you and interview you or what have you.
You know, hopefully the paper will do more than just reprint a press release. Hopefully they'll assign somebody to call you and interview you and write a real story. You know, another strategy to consider is choosing what publication you want to submit your news release to. So, you know, in the North Texas market, we have one major daily newspaper, which is the Dallas Morning News. But we have a small weekly kind of alternative independent newspaper called the Dallas Observer. And it may very well be that we start submitting press releases to the Dallas Observer and see if we can get more traction with the smaller weekly paper than we might be able to get with the major daily paper. You know, look around in your media market and see what publication opportunities there are for you, and don't think that the only opportunity is with the major, you know, daily newspaper in the market.
Yeah, that might have been our mistake in 2018. We wrote press releases following the 2018 NCLC, but the local dailies wouldn't pick it up. And the local weeklies might have been better. Now I'm even thinking that there's some online papers that are getting a little bit more widely read in this area. That may be an even better avenue for us to pursue.
I think we definitely should be looking at online media opportunities. Down here in Texas, we have a statewide nonprofit online only newspaper called the Texas Tribune, which you know, is pretty influential. It's been around for about 10 years, and they really have kind of, I think, really built the model for an online only nonprofit journalistic platform. So, you know, I'm going to try submitting news releases to the Trib and see if they'll pick it up and write a story about us.
Good old-fashioned newspaper name, Texas Tribune.
Texas Tribune, yeah. Okay, so Marnie and I are going to do a role play now. And I'm going to have Marnie play the role of the editor. And I'm going to call her a day or two after sending my news release to see if she received it and find out if she has any questions. And Marnie, I'm going to ask that you pretend that you did not receive it. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So one ringy dingy, two ringy dingies.
Hello, this is Marnie.
Hi, have I reached the editor of Newspaper Inc.?
Yes.
Oh, great. Well, my name is Ann Drum, and I'm a volunteer here in North Texas for American Promise. And I'm calling to follow up about a press release that I sent to y'all 2 days ago about volunteers in our community meeting with members of Congress during Lobby Day. Did you receive that press release?
I did not receive that press release.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. The news release was about the fact that $14.4 billion was spent on federal elections last year. And our cross-partisan organization advocates for an amendment to the US Constitution to enable reasonable limits on political spending, Several of our volunteers met with both Republican and Democratic members of Congress to discuss this constitutional amendment. I'd like to resend the release and make sure it gets to you. Can you give me an email address where I should send it?
Yes, I'll give you my personal email. It's Marnie, MARNIEW at newspaperinc.net.
Great. I will get that out just as soon as we finish talking. I imagine you know that our elections are dependent on a very small number of wealthy people, and that this big money is drowning out the voices of ordinary Americans. We also saw $1 billion in dark money spent to influence the 2020 election, and out-of-state money is nationalizing local races. We need a constitutional amendment to put any limits around all of this political spending. Do you have any questions for me about this issue of big money, or the need for a constitutional amendment to address it, or the advocacy that our cross-partisan organization is doing?
Well, I want to say thank you about being involved with this nonprofit, American Promise, and big money in politics, because it's definitely a pressing issue that more people need to talk about. I think when you resend your news release to me, do you mind just sharing about, how do you pass legislation? How does an amendment pass? Just because some of our readers might not entirely know how that processes happen.
I will be happy to put that in there. And when can I follow up with you after you've received the news release to see if you have any other questions for me?
You can follow up with me next Monday around 10 o'clock.
Great.
Eastern time.
I will make a note on my calendar. Thank you so much for your time, and check your email. I'm getting ready to hit send on that just as soon as I can.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Anne.
Thank you. Okay, so any questions about that? I asked Marnie to give me a no answer because I was prepared to explain to her in, a succinct way what my news release was about and why she should care and pay attention when I resent it. So any questions, comments about our little role play there? Okay, well, be prepared for both a yes or no answer is, I think, the takeaway there. So, bottom line is, this is an opportunity to inform our community about the need to get big money out of politics, to show community members that they can make a difference. It's an opportunity to show our members of Congress that we are speaking to the community about this issue. And it's an opportunity to attract chapter members. So let's all do our best. Let's get those news releases out there after our lobby day meetings and see if we can get some interest by local media. So this LTE team will be back again on Thursday, May 27th at 7:30 Eastern time. And we'll have an exercise, a workshop about writing letters to the editor. And hopefully we'll have some victories to share about things we've gotten published in local media. So appreciate your interest. Do we have any final questions, comments before we close out for tonight?
So
I
I
have
want to
just, go ahead.
go
You
ahead.
can go ahead. That's okay. I'm probably in kind of an unusual media market. I'm in Fairbanks, Alaska, and we do have a local daily, but the daily in Anchorage is probably more widely read, especially online. And I was just going to say that I think in a letter to the editor, it really helps to give, or even a press release, it helps to give some really concrete examples of either something your representative said during the meeting, like something maybe you were surprised about, or I think you mentioned in one of the templates that, you could give an example of maybe a local issue that maybe was influenced by money. I just think as many concrete examples to sort of tone down the feel that this is a press release. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Instead of just being a pitch for your group, you're trying to give people information to like really draw them into the issue.
So I think that's great feedback. I'm making a note right now. So concrete examples about something elected officials said in the meetings. And then also pointing out a relationship between money and politics and some local issue, some way to bring it home, give it a local angle, right? Okay, those are both very good suggestions. Thank you for that. Marie, what did you have?
Oh, I was just going to say, we didn't really have a follow-up last time we generated letters to the editor, and there isn't really a way that we found out from everyone how they did with their letters to the editor. Did they actually follow through and submit them? And if they did, were they published? And I just thought that would be, since we have a little time, maybe that would be an interesting thing to talk about.
I wasn't on the last meeting, so I don't know. Does anyone have any successes to report?
I know Sam has didn't you get one of your letters published?
Sam, you're muted.
Not this time.
Not this time?
I
No.
did.
Marie did.
I did.
You mind sharing, Marie?
Where?
I shared it right away. It was a letter about, there was an article about how actually one of our representatives, Pasquale up north, is a part of the, I forget if it's the appropriations or the oversight committee. And he had concerns about how the ownership of nursing homes by private equity firms was proving to be a signal of a worse outcome, more deaths, higher rate of deaths of nursing home residents with COVID in nursing homes owned by private equity. And that's actually, I'm a retired physician, and that's been a concern of mine. So I linked that to, in my letter to the editor, I linked that to the spending, the lobbying and the political spending by private equity firms related to COVID relief bills and so on. And it was published.
Great, congratulations.
Yeah, that's a good piece.
That was good.
Yeah, that's a good piece of journalism.
Okay, anything else?
Well, I just might add, if there's anyone on this call who doesn't have a lobby day meeting scheduled and you wanted to stay on for a couple of minutes afterward, just to kind of get some clarity on what you can do and if there's any going on in your area, that would be a great thing. I don't know if there is anyone on who doesn't have a lobby day meeting scheduled yet.
We have a quiet group tonight.
No. And also, if there are questions about lobby day, you can always email myself after our meeting if everyone is ready to hit the hay and go to bed or watch Netflix. I'm not sure.
It sounds like everybody is. All right, well, that's all I have. Thanks, everybody, and we will see you on May 27th at 7:30 Eastern.
Otherwise, on 4/28, right?
Not this good.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
It's
Well,
not
there's the,
because it's lobby day training.
Yeah, lobby day training is April 28th.
Yep.
And then the next letters to the editor workshop is May 27th. Yeah.
I'll provide all the dates and the Zoom link in the follow-up email as
Great.
well.
Thank you, Marnie.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
everyone.
Have a great
Bye-bye.
day.
Have a good one.
Great
Thank you.
job, Ann.
Bye.